Hello everybody, welcome to today's stream. Let's just order some stuff, because new skins released, of course we want to have them. And after that we are gonna prepare some stuff for the new upcoming spear. I really like that they now have spear skins in the Blackline collection as well, because they were of course missing, and now with the new spear weapon for every class, it's better to have a full collection with all the weapons. So let's see if there's any action, any strike missions. Okay, let's see if we can get something real going. Sounds good here. I always feel like if someone would be called Phil, it's actually so fun. You just write every time hi and then Phil, and it's actually also your name. I think that's hilarious. But of course my name is not Phil. Or is it? No. Just some strike missions for now. Later of course I will do the conversions. Reason for that is I need more essences, as you can see. I don't have enough if the spear will come out, and needs a lot of essences. Reason for that is it's highly likely that the new spear will require a lot of essences. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. So I would highly recommend, just in preparation for the spear and everything with the new patch in 2 weeks, that you go for everything that saves you money in the future. For example, all the possibilities to get how's it called, volatile magic, and you can transform your blue profit shards into volatile magic and therefore into gold, because volatile magic is liquid gold. And so far, I would always go for this. The 5 Iceblood Saga strike missions. You can do them daily, it's really easy. You even will get the daily strike most of the time as well. And then if you can do it, also open this box. And you will get a lot of gold just by doing this daily. Welcome. Hope you had a nice day today so far. So the reason for my argument here that you want to get as much T6 materials is that you very likely will see an increase in price of the T6 materials. Hi Donba, welcome to the stream. So if you get T6 materials now, when they are still cheap to some extent, for example, the, how's it called, Vial of Powerful Blood, it's currently at 27, and I think in 2 weeks it's really safe to say it will increase in price, just because the new spear will, and the new, let's say, skins probably will need some T6 materials for that. And if you can farm up now on T6 materials, on blue profit shards that you can convert into volatile magic and therefore into gold and T6 mats, I would go for that. It's a really good thing to do. And therefore those Iceblood Saga strike missions and of course also Dragon DS is really good to do every day. Gives you a lot of gold. Just by, if you convert everything, I think it's around almost 20 gold for just doing this once a day. If you have a good group and you don't have any downtime like we are currently having, you should do this in, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes maximum, if it's somewhat fast. I always have to check if I'm on the correct boon on Chronomancer. It happened so often that I was doing something and I didn't remember to change to the correct boon, and I was giving quickness when I was supposed to be giving alacrity. It's so on no other build that happens. That's a big downside of Chronomancer for sure. Oh, I'm joking, of course. It's a really big upside that you have the possibility to go for this and swap your boon just by changing one trait and don't have to change anything. Your gear is the same, everything is the same. It's insane. So here, I always have to say that it is especially important that you get the CC here. And we got it, very nice. We just lost one player, that's predictable in this fight. So what I wanted to say is a common misconception, it is a really big misconception, a lot of people actually think that you get killed here by the ads. So the ads that spawn here, these wisps, they don't deal any significant damage. So what is the thing that kills you here then? because it's not the wisps. That's a very common misconception. You can't, let's say, use reflex here to mitigate all the damage. That's just not happening. So what's the solution to this? You just have to heal more. The problem is that you will get damage from the aura. You know, normally the fight and how you would normally do it is that you would need to light up the torches around here, and these torches then would reduce the incoming damage or the ticking damage that you take. Because we don't do that normally, you have to just out heal it, and you can't mitigate it any other way. So it's not the ads, it's just some ticking aura damage, and you can't even dodge it, you can't invuln it, you just have to heal it. And therefore it's important to have a good healing class here, or if you struggle with it, have multiple healers. It's really important. And you can also, these chests here, you don't have actually to open them. You can just leave the instance and you will get the rewards sent by mail, which is the faster way, but I think it's way more satisfying to just open the chests here. So just that you know, I know this option exists and you can do it. But as always, if you have any questions, please let me know. I would also highly recommend this build. Because it's so versatile. I made a build guide some time ago on my YouTube channel about it. If you're interested, be sure to check that out. But in essence, this build is so flexible. You know, you can give alacrity, you can give quickness, you have huge amount of healing, you have so much boon application, you have 3 free utility slots. You can run any Mesmer and Chronomancer utility. You have a free elite skill. You know, you could go for Mass and Vis if you really need some stealth. You can even cover some quickness if your other boon is, let's say, missing. And you have so much CC if you really need it. This build does it all. Even it has the real crazy abilities of making portals for your group, of teleporting your group around. It's so good. So power crept. So be sure to check that out. I think it's one, if not the best support currently. At least in terms of flexibility. I think the raw healing output is lower than other builds. For example, Ventari Rev or even Druid. But they are not as flexible, especially the Ventari Rev is really lacking in this department, because you of course have to take this specialized legends and you can't go for anything that is, you know, more flexible, like swapping out one single skill. It's not possible on Revenant. But look at that boons. Sadly, I can't show you the boon uptime currently because Arc is not updated yet. But you can see my boons are really, really good. So they should be very good for my subgroup as well, of course. So here, of course, always be careful with the chains. Not only if you have a chain, but also that you don't bait or kill your friends or kill yourself by standing in between the boss and the chain. So don't always blame your allies, but also think about your own positioning here. It's really important. Hi Palencio, welcome to the stream. I'm good today, very good. Just playing some PvE for now. PvP is rather frustrating to last 2 days, I would say. And I want to prepare for the new legendary spear, so there's that. Because I'm of course a person that complains about no content at launch because I've did everything, and that's why I want to prepare everything beforehand that I can complain. It's my reasoning, you know. Yeah, jokes aside, how are you? How was your day? So always try to give stability. I didn't make it in time. Yeah, I know the feeling. I think that's just frustrating. It's crazy. If you lost 21 in a row, what did you do? did you rage, or did you just were you really unlucky, or did you queue to really off hours? That sounds horrible. So what I did there is that I used distortion to get invulnerable, and then I can absorb the projectiles like I would be a NPC standing in the hitbox. Yeah, I mean, totally understandable that you would cry after that. I mean, I think that's let's say, of course the population is low, and of course we have, let's say, a lot of people not queuing at sometimes, and therefore you have bad matchmaking and stuff. But let's think about it like that. I think even if you have a 50% win rate, which we think if you're a good player in Guild Wars you should have over 50%, I think it's so frustrating to have a losing streak and then have the same or a little bit higher amount of winning streak after that. I think it would be way better to have some, you know, win some, lose some, and don't have really long streaks or something like that, because it's so frustrating to play, you know. You feel like the matchmaker or even your gameplay is so sad. It just makes you want to quit the game, I feel like, at some point. That's crazy that you queue into then 8 times, because I feel like the matchmaking should at some point say, okay, maybe we split up the teams differently, you know. That, of course, they can't split boys and Jossie, but maybe they should don't, let's say, have the double scourges on the enemy team. Maybe they should be in their team. I don't know. It's crazy. I was thinking about doing a PvP tier list for ranked, but I would need a lot of people in the chat that play different builds, because I just play a few builds, you know. I can't give you a really comprehensive view. For example, I don't know how good Cornecro is currently because I did not play it. I would put it in a low tier, but maybe someone is in the chat that knows it's extremely good against this build currently. I don't know. So I would really like to do a comprehensive ranked PvP tier list. Maybe, let's say, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. We need high chat engagement for that, because I need your opinion on this, you know. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I feel like oftentimes I just check if some high-level duo queue is queuing when it's off hours. And then I just don't queue, because I don't want matches that are so frustrating, you know. I don't like that. So I do some kind of negative stream sniping. Look at those boons. PvE is so power crept, it's insane. Yeah, I also feel the thing is, it's not always the matchmaker. I think also if you lose 2 matches in a row, oftentimes it's also your mind, you know. You feel like you play good, but then you do some stupid mistakes because you are subconsciously somewhat tilted, or you have some underlying problem on that day. Maybe you are a little bit weak, tired, or a little bit, you know, you make wrong decisions. I don't know, but I feel like it's a good call to just say, okay, maybe not today. Today is not the day, you know. But I often feel also if you play the first game on your day is also the game where you probably, or at least for me, I need some match time where I warm up, you know. After one match I might be a little bit better. But often I lose the first match and I don't have any energy to go for another one. But then my subconscious mind says, I mean, you have to win at least one match per day. You can't stop on a loss, you know. And then you still keep going. It's might not be the wisest choice. So Palencio, what would you say is the best ranked class? Because I think, or spec, because I think it's actually quite different from the current AT or 5v5 setup, you know. Because in ATs often, especially the Frenchies, go for a really high bunker setup, but I feel in ranked it's totally different. If you play a bunker, you won't win most of the time, just because you will not have enough carry potential. I think if you would make a ranked tier list, I would put a lot of classes that are bunkery lower than they should be in monthly ATs or something. I think builds that have really nice potential to kill people outnumbered, to have enough damage to carry the team fight on their own, I think that's a good build. So after 3 strike missions, they figure out we have some boon problems or some overlap on boons. Interesting. Yes, I think Condé Ref is, I think I would put it really high. I think it's really good in ranked. It's also quite good against Willbender, I feel like. And it doesn't really have a hard counter, at least in my opinion. Of course, you do better than against some builds and you lose some matchups, but I would say it's not crazy. And it's a good ranked spec, I would say. But it's also quite good in competitive 5v5, of course. Okay. So you all are interested in a PvP tier list, Mr. Sim. So the sad truth is there are a lot of specs, I would say, in a place where I would say they are okay to play, but there are better options. And are there specs that I would say never play them? I would say Scorch. I have to be honest, I think Scorch is just annoyingly tanky, but if you want to play anything in ranked and, you know, don't be reliant on your team to win, then I would not play Scourge. I think Scourge is just a bad choice for that. So I would stay away from that. And I think Mechanist. I think Mechanist is, if you are, let's say, silver or something, that's okay. You can play anything there. But if you want to go higher than silver, I would say don't play Mechanist. I think Mechanist is something like a self-report. Just because Mechanist is, you don't trust your own skills, you want an AI to carry you. I think that's what it says. Apart from those two specs, I would say you can actually play all other specs, and there are builds that are somewhat usable. Hey Roaming Spurrick, welcome to the stream. I played a whole season of support Palencio. I think it was a few seasons ago. And it was actually one of the most, how can you say, the best training for your mind, you know, for your mental health. So you lost games where you carried so hard just because you could not deal enough damage. And the thing is, oftentimes it helps you to get better, to think about how hard it is to carry as a support. But I totally get your point. If you want to get high rating, you should not go for support. Yeah, I think the balance in that regard is actually fine. I would not say that the balance currently is really bad. I would just say there are classes that are really, really good. I think they just stand out. And like Palencio pointed out, support is, even though supports are really, really good in competitive team play, they are just oftentimes not the correct choice, especially if you're solo queuing. Because if you're solo queue, you don't know what teammates you get, you don't know what builds they are playing, and oftentimes you play a support and someone places 3 side noders or something in your team and you don't get any value from being support. So support might be really, really hard. Especially in ranked, you also have some teammates that even if you support them and they are a teamfight build, oftentimes it's not enough, you know, they just die over and over and you can't help them. So support might not be a wise choice most of the time. I would say typically a really good build for ranked are the roaming builds and side noders, if you can play really good on a side node. If you can win your one-on-ones consistently, even survive outnumbered situations, you can carry on a side node build. But there are also some matches where you can't win on a side node, just because you're permanently 1v2 and your team is still losing the map. So you can't win those. So you have to be aware. So there are always matches, especially in the current population, where you just say, okay, this match seems to be unwinnable. And I would say on support there are more of those than on other builds. Yeah, I also think that the Mechanist, the mech is actually not that good. But a lot of people actually think, oh my god, it does so much damage. I think the problem is it does a lot of damage for that you don't really control it, you know. So it does a lot of damage passively, which is really annoying to fight. I saw a match where Drasé actually couldn't win a 1-on-1 against the Mechanist on a strength spellbreaker, just because it was so tanky and the AI of the mech was just dealing over time enough damage that Drasé couldn't fight it. That's just really annoying, you know. But it's not really good in that sense, you know. So yeah, I think the problem is that the Jade mech, depending on what skills you choose, is doing damage passively. And if you have a build that is, you know, not capable of sustaining enough against that, and by still dealing damage, it's just not. I didn't say it's a good build. I just say it's a build that can be really annoying to fight. that's why I would say mech is one of the worst choices for ranked. Just because it's not designed that way. But I would also say, for example, Core Elementalist is also really bad. Just by the design of the trade lines. Because the traits that the core traits deliver are not of any value in contrast to Catalyst or Tempest, what they can give. Yeah, I think even after the nerfs to X, I think the Thief build is still too good. Oh, not too good, but it's still a really good build. Especially because it's so annoying if you see people that are good on it, how annoying they can be. How much damage they deal and how hard it is still to catch them, you know. So, typical Thief problem. Yeah, I totally agree. I think Mechanist is if you want to play Mechanist, you have to stay in silver. If you play Mechanist in a somewhat competent team or against a somewhat competent team, it's just probably a loss. At least if I have a match in my team as a Mechanist, I think I lost 9 out of 10 matches with a Mechanist just because there was a Mechanist in my team. Felt like a useless player. I'm really excited about when the next balance patch will happen, because the last one was actually not bad, but it was way too small, I would say, in my opinion. And I hope the next one is a big one, you know, but because they don't have to focus on spears anymore, they can just play around and have different options for stuff that they can nerf, buff, whatever, and don't have to focus on spears. So I hope the next one will be really good, and especially for all game modes. Let's see if that's true, or if it's just some copium here. But I think it's actually fine that there are different kinds of experienced builds. You know, that you have a really easy build with Conde mech, and then you have somewhat complicated and really high level, high skill ceiling builds like the Holosmith build. I think that's cool. I think that's actually how it should be. I think you should not have a class that is by design simple. I think that makes it boring. I think you should have some kind of skill difference depending on what build you're playing. Of course, you should also be rewarded for that. I think I'm of the opinion that if you play a complex build, it should do more damage than a simple build, because in most situations it deals more damage if it's easy, if the encounter is easy enough. But for example, if you have some really hard fights where you have to concentrate a lot, where you have to do a lot of mechanics, oftentimes the easier builds are better because they can have higher DPS uptime. I think that's how it should be. That's why I also think they should nerf range damage builds in the sense, at least in PvE, so that they are less DPS, but you can have higher uptime because if the boss is moving or something. I'm not sure if that's what ArenaNet also does. I think Willbender is a good build to carry ranked. But have you played as a Willbender in a full platinum match? I think I played this once or twice this season, where I had at least 6 people that were, let's say, typically in platinum, you know? It was a really stacked match, so to say. And it did not feel that good, just because you are so squishy. It's actually insane how squishy you are. If people know how to counteract the Willbender, and typically that's what happens if you have platinum players, it's actually not that crazy, you know? You get bursted, you can't connect your damage. I mean, there were some variations where you played hammer on Willbender, you know? I think that's still valid, you can do that. But I totally agree, there was a time where everyone and their dog played Hammer Core Guardian, you know, in ranked PvP.
As long as Dormag is connected to the power of a champion and the Frozen, they will keep Primordus cowed.
Don't let up. We've got to bring both champions down.
Yeah, I think that's also the reason why I would recommend to play Condition Ref for ranked, because you can actually deal with willbenders, and if you can deal with willbenders, you are actually just by itself on a pretty big advantage, because a lot of people play willbender. And like Palencio pointed out, you have actually ability to also 101. And I think a willbender just can't do that. If you can't connect your burst on a willbender, you will most likely lose the 101, because you don't have enough sustain to go in for long, drawn-out fights. Condition Ref can do that.
Use the prisms now. The champions are hanging on to dragons by a thread.
I think another good build that you can play in ranked, if you are a little bit, I don't know, Necromancers is hard, but a lot of people actually play currently the Power Harbinger build. I think that's also a rather good build. If you can play it, if you played it a bit, it actually can deal with willbenders as well, just because you have enough weakness application that the willbender is actually not really able to connect the damage. But of course you have to be a little bit aware of your position, because you're still a necromancer, you're mobile, but you don't have enough life force, you don't have any extra life, so to say, and therefore you can still die to willbender. I think that's another build that I really enjoy this current meta. Yeah, I mean, that's also one point that I mentioned in my how to play against willbenders build guide, guide in general, that if a willbender engages on you with Crashing Courage, so with the F3 skill, I would just disengage. It's for 6 seconds or something, just don't fight it. Because most of the time, if you can wait for that long and don't get in that much damage on you, you can deal a lot of damage to them after that, you know. It's like 6 seconds where you have to be really careful, and after that you can just push all your buttons as normal. But of course that's easier said than done. Of course, if you play against a somewhat competent willbender, they can connect a lot of damage in that time.
I feel it, champion. The connection's weak. Stay focused. One last push. For Bram. For all of us. Champion, help me!
Good, we are done with this. As always, if you have any feedback, questions, whatever, let me know. Always happy to improve.
It's done, champion.
Let's see if we can find something else to do. But I have to be honest, a lot of people actually say Willbender is so strong and it needs to be nerfed. I feel like if the meta shifts to more condition-heavy focused meta, where you have a little bit more defense in your builds and you just don't die just by any rather hard-hitting skill just because you're so squishy, I think Willbender is not a big deal. I think Willbender is actually rather okay, you know? Because look at it, how many people played Willbender in the monthly AT? I think it was one that was in the top 8 on EU at least. But I think on EU, I'm not sure if there was anyone. So I think Willbender is in a good spot in the sense that it's playable, but it's not totally broken. That's my take. But the question is now... Wait, let me drink some. The question is now, what should you think about when you balance as an ArenaNet? You know, would you rather have something balanced around the really high level, or would you balance around the ranked? In an ideal world, you would balance around both, of course. But oftentimes it's really hard to balance every single skill level. You know, no one played DH on a high level and they still nerfed it because it was so strong in the low level. So what is the correct play here? And I think Willbender maybe make it a little bit different how much damage they deal in what kind of time or something. But I would say it's actually really hard, because if they would nerf it, then it would not be playable at all anymore in competitive ATs. So I think that's is not always the way to go, you know. Yeah, but that's you say that as a let's say not a Willbender enjoyer, but what's for the people that enjoy Willbender, you know? Why are they not allowed to play their class? You know, why has it to be all or nothing? I think that's not fair to those kind of people, you know. I am not particularly, you know, fond of playing Willbender, but I think it's not fair to people that enjoy playing Willbender. I think in ideal world you should try to go for most builds are playable, and the really unpopular or really not cool builds to play, for example, no one wants to face a Scourge bunkering down a teamfight or something, those should not be played. But all the other builds in PvP should be played to some extent, you know. They don't have to be broke, but they should be somewhat playable. But I think at release, the Willbender was actually having exactly the same mobility. It was just the cooldowns. So if they nerfed the Crashing Courage cooldown, for example, or nerfed a little bit the damage of Spear, I think it would totally be fine. I think you don't have to touch that much of Willbender just to make it fair. At least in my opinion, you know. It's always hard, you know. Especially when it comes to balance, there will always be people that are not happy with how it went, you know. So there is no perfect way to balance it. That's why I advertise in my video for having regular balance patches that change the meta rather drastically in PvP, so that everyone gets to have a build that is fun to them every now and then, you know. But currently it's like you have a build and that's good for 2 years or something, which is not good, I would say. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the stream. Yeah, I mean, but to be honest, I think the armor class system is also a little bit outdated in the sense, because Willbender, for example, is a guardian and also suffers from having less HP, you know. So there is an inherent balance into that. And I think the virtues of Willbender are fine if the cooldown would be a little bit higher. I think it doesn't have to be much. But I agree that if they would touch anything on Willbender, I think it would either be the spear damage or the virtue cooldowns. Because I really think cooldown nerfs is the way to go. Because if you use them at the wrong time, you get punished for it. But you still have the same potential, you know? You still have the potential to deal a lot of damage, you have the potential to heal. That's how it should be. At least in my opinion. Crazy how much CC this build has. If you go into Continuum Split and do your MOA twice, it's insane. I think, for example, another thing that I was not really happy with is the change to Signet of Illusions in PvP. I think that was one of the worst changes they made so in a long time. Because I think now you have a shorter cooldown, but you don't get any value if you use it if you have your shatters just used. Because it will only reset them by 50%. I think that's a really boring change. I think they just were sick of balancing this in another way. But I think that's not the way how they should have done it. At least in my opinion, you know, because I feel like now you just, I think a lot of people still use it, but it feels way worse to use, you know, and I think that's never something that you want to have. You want to have a skill that is fun to use and doesn't feel bad just because you don't get the value that it used to give. I think that's just not cool. They could have increased the cooldown of it. They maybe even could have increased the cast time. I think that would be a nice balance as well. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think that's something different. In World vs. World, the boon uptime is of a lot of classes is actually out of control. Yeah, I think that I think the boons are fine if the duration is lower. So I think you should be able to have a burst window where you have a lot of boons. I think that should be good, you know. That should be something that is totally fine to do. But I think you shouldn't have it every 30 seconds, or with alacrity it's even lower. That's not how it should be. So if you look at this build in World vs. World, give me a second. It should not have that high boon uptime for how little investment I have into any boons. So if I use my Crashing Courage with my current setup, Lion Chaser, thanks a lot for the raid. Welcome everyone, welcome. I hope you had a nice stream. I was just explaining some balance issues with Willbender. So if I use this skill, I have some boon uptime, but you can see it gives me 6 seconds or something of stability. It gives me protection, resistance, resolution. It's so overloaded. But if you don't fight in this 6 seconds, you should be rewarded for it. But in my opinion, with the Virtue trade line, you don't feel that punishment because you have it after a few, let's say 15 seconds later, you have it again, you know? Crazy, you grinded for 18 hours. Yeah, get some rest. Thanks again for the raid. So that's what I think. If they should either increase the baseline cooldown of Crashing Courage or all virtues for that, or they should make it somewhat a lackluster change. They should think, you know, you get here. Where is it? Somewhere you get in the virtue trade line, you get that the virtues there. Virtues can reduce recharge. They should make this different depending on what elite spec you have. For example, on Willbender, it shouldn't be that or it should be lower. But I think that's not a good change. I think they should just increase the cooldown of the virtues anyway. You know, if you then have, let's say this is a 35 seconds cooldown. If you then use it in the wrong moment, you get punished hard. Because the next 29 seconds or something, you would not have your really overpowered skill. And then you have a higher amount of time where you have to play well, you know. Because if that's up, if you use this skill, this in the next 6 seconds, it's really unlikely that you can throw the 101 or something. And that's not how it should be, I feel like. It should be that you have a really cool, small burst window where you are somewhat invulnerable and deal a lot of damage, unstoppable. And after that, you get punished. If you can't succeed in this short amount of time, that's not good. I think that's why they should just increase the cooldown. Yeah, I think the Harbinger thing is also they nerfed it. You know, it's not that good anymore. And you also have to think about it a little bit differently, because you can't just compare one skill with another of a different class, because you have to look at the whole picture, you know. And I think often that is forgotten that, for example, Necromancer has a lot of other tools. So if you hit this skill, even though you have lower boons to some extent than this, the Necromancer skill gives you boons that a Necromancer normally wouldn't have access to. And it also gives you a burst window, which you can use way better on a Necromancer, on a Harbinger especially, if then, let's say, Willbender could most of the time. Because this has a cast time, it's a teleport, but it is also your defensive skill. So on a Harbinger, I would say you would most of the time not use your Elixir as a defensive skill. Here, you have to make the decision if you want to use it as a stun break or as a disengage tool. I think that's some balance that you also have to take into account. But I totally agree that it's not where it should be. Definitely. So in 10 minutes I will do the convergence, the public one, just to get some more essences. You can see I have some lying around on my in the top right hand corner. You can see I have some essences stacked up, but it's not enough. At least I guess it could be more, because you never know how much the new spear will cost, you know. I really hope it's a good skin. I will go for it anyway, but I really hope it's a cool skin. It will come out in 2 weeks. You can see it here. It's only 14 days now, so hopefully it's worth the wait. In my opinion, it should been out with release of the expansion, but yeah, that's how it is. But if you do something like that you make some really special thing that it can't be increased by boon duration, it would be just, if you're a new player, you know, how would you explain that to them? You know, this skill is just different than all other skills. That seems like a really boring thing to do, you know. I think you should try to balance your game around making it good in all game modes and understandable. The skill does this and it does it like this all the time. I think that's how it should be. There should not be such big exceptions. I think that's not good for new players. And I think I talk about it a lot, but I think new players are really important for the game. And if you don't think about it as a veteran, you are making a big mistake, because oftentimes you need new players to keep the game alive. And if you just balance around the veterans, oftentimes it's not smart for the longevity of the game. At least that's my opinion, you know. Yeah, but that's probably also the reason why you are not an ANET dev, because you are biased. And I really hope that ArenaNet devs are somewhat, you know, unbiased and really think, okay, my main might be this class, but that doesn't mean I have to balance it way better than all the others. I think that's not how it should be. I agree that Guardian is oftentimes on the better end of the classes, but that should not be the case in general. Yeah, I mean, it's to be fair, it's only a stun break because we take this trade, you know. So I think it's fine to make it, you know, if you invest a lot of trades into one skill, I think it's fine if it's a good skill. But the reason is that the cooldown is really good, you know. Even if you buff it, the cooldown doesn't increase. So they could make it like this, that if you take Indomitable Courage, the cooldown increases. I think that would be another fair change, you know. Because then you have to think about if you want to go for some nice stability and stun break, or do you want to make it less good but you have it more often. I think that would be a good thing to do as well. Maybe, you know. But it's actually, I think it's really hard. I don't know how ArenaNet balance it, you know, how they sit at each day at their table and think about, okay, how can we do this? I'm not sure what they are doing all the time, and I don't want to judge because of that. If I would know what they are doing all the time, then I can judge. But if they have something else to do in the background, which we don't know about, it's hard to judge, you know. So I can just repeat, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm always happy to answer any questions about the game. In any game mode, I'm always happy to answer. What do you mean with video settings? In YouTube. You mean in game, or what exactly do you mean, Rodolfo? Maybe you mean my graphic settings? Those are my graphic settings. But you can see I have low frames per second here, and where a lot of people are. And the Soto expansions. The Soto expansion is also really horrible, so they always have really, really low FPS. So I think you should, so I have 2 tips for if you have really large scale open world events or world versus world events. You should really go for character model to the lowest so that you see less people really rendering. And you should always switch on effect LOD, which will limit your detail of particle effects. So, for example, you can't really see all of the skills that are used. No, it's fine. I did understand it in the end. So, these 2 settings are must. You know, if I swap to this for highest or higher, you will see now I have around 50, and if I switch this, it will go down to 34, 35. And it will not make the game enjoyable. So I switch it to lowest and it will go back up. And all the other settings are just, you know, use it however you like. Shadows you can also switch off just to increase the frames a little bit more. But all the other settings are actually not that important. Go for the either auto detect or whatever you like. You know, you can switch them up, but it's not that much of an effect. I would say the game looks a lot worse if you go for best performance. It's just my opinion, but you get some more frames maybe, but oftentimes it's not helping that much just because it's just the people that are standing here, which just causes the issues. But I also have a settings guide on my YouTube channel, so if you want in-depth explanation about all the settings that you should or should not use, you can also check that out. But I like to go for this setting and switch off the shadows if I want to have a little bit higher frame rate. Because then my character at least looks somewhat good if it renders. And I still have somewhat nice environment as well. But you will see when I get in the convergence, oftentimes when the fight is and a lot of people are around, it might just take a dip in the FPS. That's normal. Even if you have a really, really good monster PC, you will not reach high frame rates when there are a lot of people. That's just how the engine of Guild Wars works. It's not optimized for that much. They improve it over time. It was way worse at the launch of the game, but now it's still not perfect. So that's just how it is. Yeah, going for some convergence actions now, just because it's some good gold actually, and it gives you some essences, and they confirmed that you need essences for the new legendaries in the expansion. So you can use the same essences that you get here, and I want to stack up on those. And of course, in 2 weeks we will get the new convergence. So the new raid will also will be a convergence. So this will also give essences, but why not stack up on those, you know? Yeah, sure, no problem. Always like to help. So you can see when the players are loading in, my frame rate from 100 drops lower and lower and lower. Especially when a fight is going on, it will decrease even more. And I think after this convergence we will do a little PvP ranked tier list, because a lot of people a lot of questions were coming up these days about which builds are good, which builds can you play, which builds you shouldn't play. I think it should be answered now in a tier list. I think it's time. So we need 20 more minutes or so, and then we start with the tier list. So if you want to optimize your damage in a convergence, you should always go for those powerful potions of demon slaying, give you 10% more damage and minus 10% damage. It's the best utility consumable you can have. And if you want to optimize even further, you can go for Knight Sigils and Demon Sigils, and then you have even more damage off, at least on a power build, of course. If you play a condition build, that's not possible. But it's a really easy way to get even more damage. And if everyone in the convergence runs this, it's a major difference. It does work together with the food. So the food is the food effect, you know, this one. And the utility effect is a different one. So this is a utility effect, so the wrench, and the food is the apple. So it works together with your ascended food. And therefore you have even more damage reduction, even more damage from the 10% damage buff that you get. So like I said, it's just straight up the best option. There's nothing even close, you know. Because the alternative would be, for example, fewer sharpening stones, superior sharpening stones, and they give you some power, but it's not even close to 10% of your damage. But of course that is in the convergence. So if you face a lot of demons, yes, you can do that. But if, for example, if you face a raid boss or something, it will not work. And therefore, it's not always the best option. Oh, they don't replace it. They are your, let's say, enhancement, and the nourishment is something else. So you can always have two buffs running up. at the same time. It's really important for optimizing your damage, especially in dungeons, convergences, fractals. You get a lot more damage by running those. Because in fractals and in dungeons there are a lot of different enemies, and most of them have a different aspect. So for example, if you run the dredge fractal, you can run dredge potions. If you are in Ara in the dungeon, you can run undead slaying potions. So there are always, depending on the enemy type that you face, there is almost always an option for the potion that you can use. And most of them are actually really cheap. So you can either craft them yourself or you can just buy them from the trading post. I would say it's worth the investment. At least for me. I really like to have higher damage numbers. Yeah, at least now you know. Better late than never, I guess. So here I'm always going for the siege engines, just to help the middle group, and then I rotate around they always spawn in the southwest first and then rotate clockwise. So it's really easy. You just have every 30 seconds I think one will spawn. So you just kill them first and then you can go for the island you want to go to. Now we can go for the lieutenants. I mean, nowadays everyone was public, but previously there was you could go for challenge mode ones. Those give better rewards and are actually not that much of a challenge. So I would go for those if I found more people doing those. Because the rewards are way better and it's also faster, so it's just straight up the better thing to do. Especially if you have all the potions and the correct sigils and you all run power builds, it's so fast. I think you can do it in 10 minutes or something. It's really fast. Sadly, I missed my gravity well here. Doesn't matter, it's just PvE. And the funny thing is you can actually also use consumables like harpy feathers and stuff in this convergence. I mean, harpy feather doesn't make much sense because it just gives you some stealth. But in general, there are a lot of consumables that can be helpful. So if you want to go for even more damage or CC or something, you could use those as well. Just some really, really high level tips that you will probably never need, but just so that you know. Because if you really need CC, you can, for example, use a plank or a shovel, which will just give you some more CC. It doesn't depend on your skills that you use. Especially in challenge modes, that can be helpful, maybe even a game changer, because you can CC more than you would normally do, even though you're running the same build. There are a lot of enemies here. I think I will die. No. I didn't see it in the water. Sad. All my nice globules here. I mean, that's not where you want to fight this guy, but I guess it's fine. I mean, Mesmer Spear is so fun. I really enjoy Mesmer Spear. Particularly in PvE. It's so useful. It does so much damage. It has AoE. It has CC. It even... What? It even has an evade and cleanse. It's crazy how much good stuff you have here. I actually think the end boss of this is not uniformly distributed. That means that I think there are 5 end bosses, and I think not all of them in normal mode, or public at least, are of the same probability that they happen. Because I was doing them daily a few months back, and I think it was, my record was 8 times I got Umbriel in a row. If it would be uniformly distributed, so that means that they have the same probability, I think the chance of happening is below, I think, 0.0%. It's insanely unlikely that this will happen. So it is probably not the case. So I think a lot of, not all of the bosses are the same probability. Now we got the Hell Sister, which is not the best one. I will go for heal, just to make sure. But it was insane. I think it's 8 times in a row before the nerf actually, so they nerfed Umbriel, and before that it was actually not that easy on public, because it just permanently killed Sosha. But now you can see how much my frames dropped from the 100. Now I'm in the crowd and I have around 60 to 70 only. I always try to stack up as many as I can of those Cryptus essences, and if Sosha needs heal, I will go there. But even on a healer, it's more beneficial to stack up on those, because you will get increased concentration, makes it even easier to stack up wounds. And if it's not needed, you know that you deposit them into Sosha, then you also should not do it, just hold on to them. Nice, it one-shot me. Even though I blocked. Good, very good. I mean, if you see this fight as a new player, you will also think, what is happening here? Because you can't see anything. It's not very, you know, interactive. I mean, I think Guild Wars has this problem in general. I think actually all MMOs have that to some extent. But in this fight, it's extreme. It's really extreme. Almost done, and then we can go to the tier list. So I think this week is actually also the, I think it's a 3v3 again, the monthly 3v3 tournament. I'm really excited to see what people come up with, if there's some nice new French cook, or if there's just the same old builds. I think they nerfed actually Healing Vindicator, So that might not be there anymore. It's actually crazy because you never saw that in ranked. You never, let's say, saw it except on the Frenchies team, I would say. But it can become impressive quite fast because all bunker healing Vindicators or healing Revenant builds for that matter are just really annoying to fight. I think that's why they nerfed it. They just wanted to make sure that it's not played at all. I would really like to know how this boss is targeting enemies. So is it the farthest away, or is it just random? Because oftentimes it teleports onto Social, which is obviously not where we want to have it. So would be really helpful to know, because for example Chuck Garant targets the player with the highest DPS, which is really fun. So if you are the highest DPS player, you can tank it and can decide where it's going. Would be cool if that's the same here, but I think it's not the case. So finally, takes always way too long. Good. So let me quickly set up it and with my stream title and stuff, and then we will do the PvP tier list. So I hope you all can contribute a bit if you have any opinions on that. So is it good visible? Let me so that should be good. So always, I of course need your help if you have some opinion here. Always tell me. Might be that I forget something, might be that I am totally coping on something. Always let me know. It's really greatly appreciated. Give me a second. Okay. So I would say let's start with some core stuff, you know. I think a lot of core stuff is actually not that great. I was also thinking about starting with other stuff, but I think let's start with some core stuff. I think core Mesmer, for example, is better than other core specs, but in my opinion is still not good. Even with the spear, and after the nerfs especially of the spear, it's not good anymore. I would say core Mesmer in ranked is just a troll. Because, of course, if you don't have any elite spec unlocked, yes, of course, core Mesmer is viable, but all the other specs are just better if it comes to Mesmer. It's just inferior in all elements. And the same, I would say, also goes for core Ranger. They are really similar. You have a kit that is okay, but all your elite specs are just better. They are just improvements over the core spec. There are actually some core specs that have some benefits, but those two don't. I would say they are just worse. It's just how I feel. And you can continue with another core spec that is bad, which is just the core Revenant. I think core Revenant has the same issue. It just is worse by design, because all other elite specs give some benefit without taking anything. And that's just why it's bad. Just let me mention quickly, I talk about ranked PvP here and only about how good it is in ranked PvP. So I won't take into account how good it is in tournaments, because in ranked sometimes builds are worse or better depending on your let's say on the setup, and in ranked oftentimes it's a little bit different in tournaments. We will come to that with support, but regarding the core specs here, I think it's straight up the same. It's not good. I think core Thief is actually better, and to some extent you could play some condition core Thief, but at this point I would say, why do you not play the other specs? They are just the same. So I would actually put it at the high end of D tier. It's playable, but it's not good. Definitely not good. Okay. So now we get into my comments from earlier. So I mentioned that Mechanist and Scourge are for me the most brain dead specs for PvP. You should not play them. You should, as a new player, should avoid them. They are somewhat played in low-level PvP, and therefore people think they might be good. But if you get somewhat competent at the game, those are just really bad. They are really, really bad. There's no way you would want to run those in a real PvP match. Even if you are low gold, you should never have a problem against those two specs. So please don't play them. They are so bad. They are just... With the Mechanist, you rely on your AI pet to kill the enemy, which is just not good. And the Scourge is just tanky and doesn't do anything, and just die after a longer amount of time, so never play those. I would not recommend to play those 2 elite specs. Okay, so where do we continue? I think let's stick a little bit with the core specs. I think I saw some Frenchies play core engineer with spear. I think it actually does a surprising amount of damage. I think it was also with toolkit. I think there is some playability there. I think in ranked it's actually quite okay. It's for sure not good, not really good, but it's definitely okay. I think I would put that for now in C tier. Just because it's playable, the spear is actually dealing a surprising amount of damage. And you can kill, let's say, surprised enemies really easily. If it's really holding up to the other S tier specs and stuff, I doubt it, but let's check it. We see it later. So I think the same goes for Core Necromancer. I think Core Necromancer is playable. You are really tanky. You have some nice CC lineup with a lot of fear. It's better than the D tier specs, but it's also not really good because it just has not a lot of sustain. So if you get damage, oftentimes you just die after a few seconds, a few minutes if you can hold out for long, but you will lose the 101 most of the time if you can't kill the enemy fast enough. So I would say it's also C tier. I think it's okay. Especially for a new player, I think it's actually quite tanky. You can learn a lot on this spec, but you're really slow, so you have to position well. I think it's, especially in ranked, you can be punished really easily if you are out of, let's say, go to the wrong node, if you rotate wrong. I think that's definitely a problem on this spec because you're so slow. Even with swords, it's not fast. So yeah. Core Elementalist, for me in ranked is just, I would not play this. I think it's high D tier for me. It's, why don't you play Catalyst? I think with dagger buffs, Catalyst is really strong. And Core Elementalist is just not as strong. I think you could argue that it's also in C tier, but I would say for me it's in D tier because it's just a worse Catalyst. Catalyst gets the Catalyst sphere. Core Elementalist doesn't have anything, so I would not go for that. At least in my opinion. Sorry. And what's the? Do we have one more left? The core specs. Yeah, Core Warrior. So Core Warrior. Core Warrior can be really annoying, can be really tanky, and is actually, I think, the best core build. But is it B tier? I doubt it. I think it's still C tier. I think you can't really carry on Core Warrior. I mean, if you are Goku or some really high level warrior player, yes, you can carry, but I guess you could carry more on other builds, so I would say that's not the best option for ranked play. At least in my opinion. I don't know, yeah. And I think that's it for the core specs. Yeah, I think that's it for the core specs. I think let's finish with the engineer stuff because we already put 2 engineer specs in. So engineer is in a bad spot. I think engineer in PvP and ranked is, in my opinion, the worst class at the moment. I think it's actually quite far. I think there is no class that is so bad currently. It doesn't mean you can win matches on engineer, but in my opinion, it's definitely not the best option. There might be some cooked up build, where you can say, okay, that's definitely the way to go. But in my opinion, it's not the best. There is probably no good build that is really good. So I think Holosmith is good. I think it's B tier, but it's low B tier. I think it's you die so fast. You can deal some damage with static discharge, especially in ranked. It's actually quite nice to surprise enemies. But Palencio, would you put it higher than B tier? Be honest, there are a lot of builds coming up that are actually higher, I would say. I would say it's B tier. It's for sure the best engineer build, but is it really higher than B tier? Yeah, okay, but I think that's, if you look at people that are really good at a build, it might not be the build itself, it's just the player. For example, if Sukaya would play let's say a Willbender or a Condition Ref, he would perform even better, you know? So, I'm not sure. Let's leave it for now at, let's say, B tier. We could put it in A tier for now as well. But I would say B tier for now and see what else we put there. But I would say Scrapper is definitely lower. I think Scrapper can be B tier if you play it really well, but it's definitely lower than Holosmith. If the nades deal still a lot of damage, for example on Willbender, if you can kite them, it's crazy how much you can get done. But it's definitely worse than Holosmith, I would say, because your sustain is not really there, and you only have most of the time only 1 or 2 stun breaks, which is just not enough from, let's say, for an typical engineer build. I would say it's low B tier for me, because it's better than core engineer and core necromancer for sure. If it's better than core warrior, I'm not really sure about that. Depends on who's playing. But let's leave it at that for now. And then I also want to finish Necromancer because we started it already. So now we get into a really tough category. I think Reaper. I think Power Reaper is a meme. You should not play Power Reaper. I think Power Reaper is not good enough. You are too squishy. You don't deal enough damage. Most of the time you can deal damage, don't get me wrong. But if you really want to deal damage, I think there are a lot of other classes that can deal more damage. And Condi Reaper. I think Condi Reaper was really good 1 or 2 seasons ago. Now it's worse, but it's still good because it's one of the only condition specs there is. I think there is only Condition Ref and Spectre that are currently conditioned. That are really, you know, a lot of them around. Of course, you can play some Condi Weaver or some Condi Untamed or Condi Soul Beast. There are different builds, but they are not that popular right now, even though they are good. I would say Condi Reaper is in ranked. If you can play it well, it can carry the team fight. If you can sustain, even though you are, let's say, I think it might be A tier for me in ranked. Yeah, I'm talking about ranked. Just because in ranked, the enemy team often doesn't have enough focus on you, and you can deal quite a lot of damage. You have a lot of CC chains. Even if you don't play pistol, if you play scepter, you have a lot of teamfight pressure. There's a lot of options there. I think Reaper is good, might be high B tier. I'm not sure we can change that. Yeah, I think let's leave it at that for now. I think you have a really huge amount of carry potential if you land your Chill to the Bone. If you can bait dodges with it, especially in higher ranked matches where enemies really dodge your animation and you stow it, you can carry. I think there is potential. I think after the buffs to Harbinger in general, I think Harbinger is also in a good spot for ranked. It's quite squishy in contrast to Condi Reaper, but it has a lot of resustain and it has great damage. I think the spear needs some tuning. I think the spear is too weak, but you run it on spear and sword, and it's really good. I would say it's also A tier for me for ranked, just because it's so mobile. It has a lot of damage. You have a lot of weakness uptime. I think both of those necro specs are actually rather good for ranked. They are not S tier for me. Definitely not. They might be high B tier depending on the other classes that you put in A tier. but I would say they're actually also fine. Please let me know if you have any comments there. I don't want to make it only my opinion, and also I'm willing to change because I have an opinion, yes, but it might change depending on what you give for good arguments for classes to put in different tiers. Okay. So I would say let's continue with Revenant. I think Vindicator is actually not that good anymore. They nerfed it, so you can play some weird Condi Revenant Vindicator, I mean. Or you could play the typical power Vindicator, but it's definitely worse than it was. You're just annoying. And it's not good anymore. It's just annoying to face. You dodge a lot, but you don't do that much anymore. You could play some support, but I don't know how heavily they nerfed it. I mean, the Frenchies might still come up with something, but I am not sure if it's really good. I totally agree that it feels horrible to play. Especially if you know what it was before, you know. Before it was just you deal a lot of damage with hammer, you dodge a lot. And I totally agree. I think the dodge mechanic is just bad. I think you dodge and deal damage, so you don't get punished for dodging. You have still damage uptime, especially when you have the chill dodge or the boon extension dodge that it was before. Feels just bad. I think there are so many things wrong with this dodge mechanic. I think for me it's C tier. You don't have that much carry potential on this build. You are just annoying. If you can carry in rank by just being annoying and not dying, I think that's fine. But there are better builds to do that, I would say. We will get to that later. But I wouldn't... Maybe it's B tier if you are coping, but I would not say it's higher. Just because it doesn't do that much, you know? Which is good, I think, if it's because it feels really bad if you can evade and invuln frame permanently. I think that's not how it should be. But the sad truth actually is Renegade is worse. Renegade is worse, I would say. There is no real reason why you would take Renegade, I would say. The rework to the spirits, or what they are called, was good in a sense because they were really bad before, but they are still bad. That's my take. I don't know where I would put this. I would probably put it in really low C tier, just because I wouldn't recommend anyone playing that. Because there's no real good reason why you would take Renegade, you know. The traits are not that amazing. And you get access to Alacrity, but that's it, I would say. So, yes, not that crazy good. So, but always, if you have any comments on that, please let me know. I'm not totally rigid in my choices here. And then we come to the GOAT, I would say. The only Revenant spec that is actually good, I would say, at the moment, is Herald. I think Condition Herald with Spear. I'm not talking about power. Power is fun, but it's not good. Condition Herald with Spear is extremely strong in ranked. I think that might be the first S tier build. Just because it provides so much. It has power damage, it has condition damage, it has nice sustain, it has some ranged, it has some nice cleave, it's a team fighter, it's a roamer, it can even 1-on-1 if you play, for example, Demon Queen Relic. It's very versatile, and if you play it well, I think it's a really good carry for ranked game, especially if you're solo queuing, just because you can fill so many roles. I would say it's a really good build right now. Yeah, I would just... That's it. I think that's the statement. It's a really good build. Okay, that's it for Rev. I think next we are going to go Thief. Thief is a little bit different because Thief has some inherent good design for Conquest. You are fast, you have access to, for example, shortbow if you really need it, but in general you have stealth access, which is also really strong. You can easily decap, you can outnumber, especially on X-Thief, you have a really high pressure. I think it's also Deadeye is quite oppressive with the rival, even after the nerfs. So the Thief specs are actually rather close together, I would say, for ranked. I would say for ranked, at least I would say Daredevil is for me for sure A tier. Just because you have a nice outnumber potential, you have a nice potential to kill the enemy. I wouldn't not say that it's S tier, just because you are very vulnerable to teams where you don't get any value if they fight only 2 nodes, if you have really bunkery team opponents, so it might not be, the outnumber doesn't do that much. I think it's a good A tier spec. I think at the moment Thief in ranked is in a rather good spot. You can play it, but it's not the ultimate carry. Maybe, of course, if you have Syndrona or something, Azadome, the really good Thief players on AU, of course, they can make it shine, but I would say I'm not talking about the really high-end PvPer, I'm talking about the average PvP gamer. And I would say then Thief is good, especially X-Thief, but it's not absolutely busted. It can be really annoying, but it's not busted. And I would also say Spectre. Not a lot of people play it, but I think Spectre can be really good as well. It might be worse in ranked because it's not you have a support element in it, and support in ranked might be worse than it is in competitive and team play. But I think it might be low A tier or high B tier. Let's put it in A tier for now. But I think it's worse than Daredevil just because you are more of a supporter, and support might be really difficult in ranked matches often. And the same goes for Deadeye. I think Deadeye is really good, but you're squishier a little bit than Daredevil. And especially with a lot of condition revenants around, I think Daredevil is a little bit more value than the Deadeye. Deadeye is a bit harder to face with conditions and stuff, so I think all of the Thief specs are actually somewhat close. I would say that Deadeye is a little bit lower. It's just my opinion. Might be wrong on that. I'm not a Thief main here, but I think that's where I would put them. Please always, if you have any comments about that, let me know. I think that's what I would do so far for Thief. Yeah, I think that I would leave it at that. So yeah, I think that's it for Thief. I think now I want to talk about Warrior. I think Warrior is also interesting. So let's start with Bladezorn. I think Bladezorn for Conquest PvP at the current state is just low C tier, if not D tier. It's really bad. It doesn't bring anything that you would need on a Warrior side node build. It's also not that crazy in damage. It's just, it doesn't do that much anymore. It was really strong at release. It was really, really good at release. You could spam so many shouts, you were so tanky. You had so much resustain, but they nerfed it so hard, now it's not playable anymore. Especially also with the change that you can't store your Dragon Trigger anymore, so it's just bad. I think it might be worse than Core Warrior. I'm pretty sure about it actually. So in the same vein, let's talk about let's first talk about Berserker, I would say. So I think Berserker, you have some mean build for ranked to play some full one-shot, unblockable, lone cap style, greatsword rival build, which is really good at low rating because you can just surprise people. But if you're at a higher rating, I think that's not working anymore. So the other option would be a condition side noding build. It was around for ages and it's still good with Akeem Relic, Mace. It's good. I think it's a good build. It might not be the best meta currently, but I think it's definitely a good build. I would put it in B tier. For ranked, if you play it well, you have a tough time in some matchups, but I would say it's a good side-loading build. It's not the best, but it's a good one. You can play it for sure. Yeah, I think that's where I would put it. So the next one I would talk about is Spellbreaker. So Spellbreaker has always been somewhat good in a side-nodding role. With the Spear, it was absolutely busted. Now they nerfed Spear into the ground, so it's not good anymore. So you run some Strength variant, most likely, with Greatsword. And you can even go with Staff and some crazy Might uptime. And even Quickness. So I would say this build is fun to play. And it might even be quite good in ranked. I think it's actually quite good in ranked. Just because you can deal a lot of damage. Spellbreaker can also be a little bit tankier with defense variant. And you can go in side-nodding. And you can just carry people in just by winning 1-on-1s, 1v2s. I think I would put it in A tier. I wouldn't put it in high A tier just because there are better side-noders at the moment, I would say. And you can get punished quite hard by, for example, power block mesmers. Because you just have no good way to deal with them. And you just get perma-interrupted on your heal, for example. And the strength one is also really squishy, but you can deal a lot of damage, which is really important in ranked, of course. So I would say that's definitely something that you could take advantage of in ranked. Yeah, I think that's where I would say Warrior is at the moment. Somewhat mediocre, I would say Warrior. Not totally bad, but not also that busted. Okay, so next one would be Mesmer. It's a little bit hard to rank, I would say, because they nerfed Spear really hard, but it's still good. So let's start by Virtuoso. I think Virtuoso, you can either play some really obnoxious, tanky build, just be annoying. The side note, yeah, I would say that's B tier for me. I think you can play this build. Even if you play power, it deals damage. It's actually quite surprising how much damage you can deal, even from range. I wouldn't say it's a A-tier build by any means, just because it's tanky and this has one really good attack and it can use the spear. Yes, that's all good points, I would say, why it's good. But I wouldn't say it's... The other Mesmer specs are just better for that role. Just because you can easily counterplay it. If it doesn't have its invulnerability up, it's just easy food for some fast-paced builds like Thief or Willbender. I think it's B tier. I think it's not crazy good. But let me know if you have any opinion on that. I think that's just where I would put it. Yes. Then I would talk about Chronomancer. So Chronomancer was absolutely busted. I think I would put it in S+ tier if they didn't nerf it. But now they nerfed it, so they nerfed the spear damage, they nerfed healing output, they nerfed with the Signet of Illusions, they nerfed the Shatter recharge. I think it's still really strong. You can play the rival build still with a Berserker Amulet, or you can go for the support build. Both of them are really good. But where would I put it in a ranked match? I would say if you can get value from your support build, it's a really good build still. If you can't get value on your support build, I would say you lose a little bit of value just because your spear doesn't deal that much damage anymore. But I would still put it in low S tier for ranked. Just because it's so valuable what you can bring to the party, to your team to carry. You have so much value by being in a fight because you have so much support with the Chaos straight line. I think it's worse than Condition Herald for ranked just because you are somewhat of a teamfight supporter and Condition Herald can fill multiple roles and this Chronomancer build can't. But I would still put it there. I think it's still above the other classes in A tier. Might be wrong on that if we get some more, let's say, ranked meta changes. I'm not sure, but at the moment I would put it there. Maybe I put it in high S tier, high A tier. One of those. For ranked. Yeah, let's put it as S tier, but low S tier. I think I would also put Mirage in a really high tier, either in A or S. So I'm talking about ranked PvP solo queue, how good the current classes are, how good, where I would put them in for ranked PvP solo queue. And the S tier is just the most broken builds currently, which you can use to carry almost any game if you play it well. So I would say Mirage has more damage than Chronomancer. It also has a higher skill level baseline. It also has a higher skill ceiling. So if you can play it well, yeah, if you can play Mirage well, I would say it might be better than Chrono on the power build, but it's really hard. So I'm talking about Condition Herald with Spear. Condition Herald with Spear is really good. It's really good for carrying ranked games. Not Power Herald, of course. I'm talking about Condition Herald. Just because you have so much, you can do so much. You are team fighter, you are a roamer, you even can take 1-on-1s. You are tanky enough to survive Willbenders. You can deal condition damage. It's crazy. It's really good. I think that's currently really good. Yes, I'm German. Okay, so I would put Mirage in A tier just because it's harder to play and you can get even more punished. Yeah, you know. Thanks for the follow, only more. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I think that's where I would put it for now. Oops. And yeah, let's leave it at that for Mesmer for now. And let's continue with Elementalist. So Elementalist is a little bit different. I would say Fire Weaver to start with. It's a really fun build. If you play it correctly, it's actually quite surprisingly good at fighting some side nodding builds. But you lack so much stability uptime that it's actually a problem. So I would say this build is really fun. It was really good previously. There are still some people that play it and are really, really good at it. But the general player will get punished for not having stability. So I would put Fire Weaver in low B tier for ranked, maybe C tier. Depends a bit on the team comp. For example, if there are a lot of necromancers around, don't play that. Just because you are permanently chilled, you can't get anything done. If you face a lot of condition pressure, it's also pain. So you have a lot of counters. That's why this build might be also C tier. But if you don't face these, you know, if you have some really power-focused teams, or let's say a little bit slower bunkery teams, that's why I would say that's definitely the way to go. If you play it well, it might be good. It might be really good. Thanks, Onlytmo. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate the subscription. Thanks. Hope you enjoy the content. So that's why I would say Fire Weaver is not that good. I'd leave it for now at B, just because it's not crazy good. But if you play it well, I have some really crazy plays on Fire Weaver where you just 1v2s, 1v3s even, just because you surprise your enemies. That's what this build does. You just cleave so much with your fire burst. It's insane. But you can also get that bursted that easily. So let's leave it at that. So Catalyst, I would say, is actually A tier. I think Catalyst, you can play the Dagger Catalyst build. You can play some Fresh Air variant. You can even play Hammer Catalyst. There are a lot of variants, and it's just a really good build. It's really good. It has a lot of potential. I would also maybe put it in A tier depending on the team, in S tier depending on the team comp, because it's so versatile. You can play so many builds on Catalyst, and all of them can carry in the right hands. You don't have, let's say, really good way to deal with outnumbers. If you get bursted by a thief or something, you are a bit, let's say, you have a big problem. But it's still very valuable. I would say it's if you play it well, you have to work on your skills. But if you play it well, I would say you can really well carry on this build. So now we come to the sad part. I would say Tempest buffs were not enough, in the sense that might be the best supporter now, I'm not sure. But it's still a support. So if you play a support, you have to face a lot of pain in ranked. Because even if you carry the team fight, you can't be all around the map, and your team might still lose other fights. And even if you really play really well with all the healing you put out, with all the CC you put out, with all the cleanses on a Tempest, it might not be enough. The team still might not deal any damage. So I would say it's definitely a big problem. I would say it's the best support. I would put it in A tier. But it's definitely not... It's probably the same as Chrono, but it's worse for ranked. Just because you can get punished so easily, because you, let's say, don't deal that much damage. You can play a side note build with it, but it's worse than Catalyst, I would say. I would say it's low A tier or high B tier. I think for ranked, at least, that's where I would say. Yeah, I would put it for now. Yeah, let's leave it at that for now, yeah. Okay, so now to Ranger. Ranger is an interesting class. So for competitive team play, it's not that easy where to put all this stuff. But I would say, for example, Condition Soul Beast is actually, boys plays it and it looks really good. Of course, when boys plays any class, it looks really good. But I would say in ranked, I would put it in B tier. Condition Soul Beast, it can be really good. It's not crazy good, but it's good, somewhat good. It has some problems against special classes, but I would say it can, in the right circumstances, it can carry a ranked match. I would say for me, it's a classical B tier build. It has some issues, but it doesn't have that many. So it can be played, definitely. The same goes actually for Untamed. I think Untamed is a little bit better. Or let's say a little bit... It's not better in the sense that it has more flexibility, but it's a little bit safer. You don't get punished that easily. But you also might not have that much damage. Depending. It's hard to say. I would say both of them are really well balanced. Sadly, both of them can't really use Spear, so that's not that good. But I would say they are somewhat good in the sense that they can carry. They might also be low A tier, you know, if you play them well. I think they can also be low A tier. Let's leave it at something like that for now. And Druid is a really weird spec. So Druid is not good in competitive, let's say 5v5s or ATs, because it just can get easily outnumbered and doesn't really have that much damage. But if you play it well in ranked, it can be really, really annoying. And I think this makes it good in a ranked game, you know, because a lot of people can't deal with you. I think it might be in ranked one of the best side noders right now in ranked. Just because it's really annoying. It can kite quite well. It also has some revival potential, which can be helpful for teamfights if you really want to go there. Yeah, I would say it's for ranked. Both of those are A tier for me. Yeah. And you can both of them are somewhat sustained, and also, let's say, if you can't kill them or one-shot them, they can re-sustain quite well. That's also really helpful. Yeah, and that brings us to the last class, which is Guardian. Oh, I forgot actually the Core Guardian. So, Core Guard, I would say only play this as a supporter. And I think it's really easy in ranked. It's really low B tier for me. Just because it's a support. It's a good support. It's not the best support, but it has access to abilities, it has access to some nice healing and cleansing. And it has access, of course, to the Signet. So it can revive one person, which can swing the team fight. So I would say in rank that might be a match winner. But oftentimes I would say it's just worse than the other two supports that are currently run. And support in ranked, especially in solo queue, is horrible to play because oftentimes you just get demolished even though you carry the team. So that's just how it is as a support. So the next I would say is for me Firebrand. Firebrand is also that you could play some Burning or Sage variant, but I would say the best variant is some pure support. But pure support Firebrand, in my opinion, is strictly worse than Core Guardian. It's a good support if you don't get focused. But as soon as you get focused, you lose all your value because you have to go kiting. You don't have the really easy access to core virtues. So it's just worse, especially in ranked. Currently, the best support, I would say, depends a bit on the team comp, but I would say it's really close between Spear, Chronomancer, and Tempest. I would say both of them are extremely good, especially in team play and ATs. In ranked, both of them are, especially if you solo queue, you lose value just because you play support and your team might not, let's say, take advantage of your support. But I would say that's the reason why I would go for Spear Chronomancer, just because you can deal out more damage, you know? And this damage might be enough to swing the team fight. A Tempest doesn't really have that much damage, and therefore you lack a little bit the carry potential. But I have to say, I don't know how well Condi support Tempest performs. There might be a situation where Condi support Tempest deals more damage than support Chrono. But I would say in most circumstances, the best support is still support Chrono, just because you have so much access to damage while giving a lot of boons and healing and Condi glances. But you have to be aware that the big weakness of Chronomancer as a support is that you don't have any resurrection skills. Not a real one. So you don't have any glyphs that can resurrect people. So that's the only weakness, I would say. So if you feel like you can carry with your reses, then you should go for Tempest, because you can of course get some clutch full revives, or you can even get some 3 people at once with the Earth Cliff. So that of course happens. I mean, I got it once or twice in some fights, but it's really, really rare. Okay, so that's it for the 2 Guardian specs. Now to the other 2. So I would say Willbender for me is also low S tier. I think it's weaker than the other 2, just because it has the potential to get bursted by the enemy. So if you, for example, face 2 enemy Willbenders and they engage on you, you have a big problem, just because you are so squishy. But for a rank, it's also really good because you can carry so much by dealing a lot of damage to the enemy. You can kite quite well with a lot of mobility that you have. You also have some nice setup skills. It's just a rather well-rounded build that is really squishy. I think that's how it is. And especially if you can get value from your roaming skills, so that you go to a point, kill something, or apply pressure and go to the next point because you're fast, and you apply another an amount of pressure to the fight there. So it's really valuable if you can do that well. And if you don't get punished for your, let's say, low health pool, then I would say it's an easy win most of the time. I think the biggest weakness is Condi Herald. But if you can avoid them because you're faster, or you can just, if they are not in the match, you just have free reign over the match. So I would say that's a really good one. If you enjoy Willbender, of course. And then the last one is actually an interesting one. So the H, you could of course go for the traditional trapper one with longbow or something, but this is not good. It's C tier, I would say. But there is actually a good build, which is a decap annoying bunker build by Stonlo, which is really annoying, really bunkery, and if you play it well, it can carry matches. Not all matches, but a lot of them. And that's why I would put it in A tier. I think for me that might be a good build to carry as well. Because you just push far or close and you hold it the whole time. If an enemy comes, you fight them and get the point anyway because you decap or you knock them off point. If you get outnumbered, you can sustain, you can kite, and you get the decap after they kept the point. That's just how you play it. So if you played it well, it's also really, really strong. Just because it's so annoying to fight and not a lot of people know how to beat it in ranked. Yeah, I think that's what I would put my tier list in. It looks rather well balanced, I have to admit. There are classes in every tier. They are somewhat evenly spread. Do you have any comments on that, or do you think that's somewhat reasonable for ranked? Would really be interesting to see if you have any really, really big changes you would make here. But I think it actually looks quite okay. Not all of them I'm really sure about, but I think that's where I would stand. Let's see how that ages with the next patches. If there will be some hot fixes, some balance changes. Who knows, you know? But I would say that's a good tier list in the end. Yeah, I think that's where I would leave it. Yeah. I guess that's it. Yeah, I think that's also it for me for today. Thanks a lot for watching. Last question. So I answered that question before, but I can of course tell you again. So the best support healing spec is either support Chronomancer or support Tempest. Both of them are really strong. I would say for ranked play, I would go for support Chronomancer still, with Spear that is. But if you enjoy Tempest, I would also recommend to try out Tempest, just because Tempest can carry. But in both ways, I would say it can be really frustrating, just because you are support, and oftentimes your team doesn't take value from this. They still push 3 nodes and are permanently dying on every node that you're not on. So it's just support in ranked might not feel that great. But I would say the best support, at least for me, is still support Mesmer, because you have so much support Chronomancer, you have so much rune access, some nice healing, some nice stability. It's really strong. But if you play Tempest well, for example, Zeolith makes it look really, really good. They won the last monthly AT with Tempest. So I would say Tempest can go also in S tier if you play it really well. I think both of them are totally valid. That's where I would let them for now. So I hope that answers your question, Tim. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it for today. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for all the follows and subscriptions. Thanks a lot. Be sure to check out my YouTube channel if you haven't already. I have a lot of cool build and commentaries and guides. Thanks a lot. Hope to see you tomorrow. And see you next time. Bye.